Home is now a link. I can click this and it takes me to example.com/home. These don't work right now, but I'm going to go ahead and code these right now. So I'm just going to copy this, and you can just go ahead and do this to all your links. So you can see all my images links are right here. And I'm just going to close these. Make sure you close your links. It's basically telling it to start here and stop here at your image. My images / contact, my artwork, my about. I'm just going to change this about, artwork, and contact. And of course you can do whatever links you want. This is just showing as an example. Now I press Control S to save this, and I'm gonna reload this, and you can now see all of these act as links. So I can click this, example.com/about, artwork.com/about, and example.com/contact. Sorry, I was just saying those links wrong, but that's the basic of our links. It's all pretty easy from here. Now to center this is where we're going to start learning CSS, which is pretty much something you're going to guaranteed need to know. It's a little confusing at first, but it's a must know for HTML coding. You're going to come up here, and under meta, you're going to put a new line. You're going to do link href, and you're going to do style.css type, and you're going to do text/css, and go ahead and close this. And when you click design, this is using I'm going to go ahead and cheat. This is my default I use. I will have this code on gfxcube.net if you wish to find it. It's basically showing the style.css sheet information you can need, or you can just go ahead and copy it from right here. This is basically telling it to find our style.css sheet that we created at the beginning when we started coding right here. It's going to find that, and it's going to read information off that file. If you're using Dreamweaver CS4, which I would recommend, you could just go ahead and click design from this point back to code, and you'll see it automatically opens our style sheet. If you're not, and you're using Dreamweaver CS3 or below, you're going to have to manually open your style sheet with Dreamweaver into a new thing and edit it. You can see our body tag here. All this information inside of here, Photoshop puts in there, and you're not going to need. We're going to go ahead and just select all the way from here, and we're deleting all of it. So all we have is our body tag. Now when we come to our style.css, our cascading style sheet, this basically is telling our HTML coding what needs to be done. I'm going to put body, which this body right here is representing our body tag right here. So everything inside of this is going to be telling the HTML what that body tag needs to be doing. So we're just going to start off by putting margin 0 auto, and we're going to close this. So when you're doing this, this tag right here is telling us how to start our coding, or which part of the coding we're doing, and we're having 0 margin, which margin is kind of like your padding, and we're having it set to auto. And we're going to go ahead and close this part of the tag. Here's our start and ending of our body. I'm going to save this. And what this is doing is hopefully centering our document. So I have this saved now. I'm going to open my thing. I'm going to refresh. And that did not work. And the reason would be we need our width. See, the width of our document is 760 pixels. So I'm going to go back to our style sheet, and I'm going to tell this that our body, its width is 760 pixels. Now you can see I did my width, and I have the tags telling it what it needs to be doing, and it's 760 pixels, and I'm closing it. And I save this, and now when I refresh, we have our document centered. Basically, the margins on this left side and this right side are set to automatically push against each other, so it's centering our whole entire document. Next, what we're going to want to do is get our content area going. So I'm going to go to design, and I'm going to click on my content, and you see puts a box around this. So I'm going to go to code. What's this here for? Okay. Go into code, and here's my content right here. It automatically creates a spacer image, which is just a 1 pixel invisible layer that just continually repeats to fill up this space, which is right here. Up, if we'll select it, it's right here. It's just this content box down here. It's not wanting to select it, but you get it. It's just right here. And I'm just going to remove this. And I'm going to press Control S to save. And when you see when I refresh this, that's no longer there. It's because our image, I completely removed it. So now I'm going to make this CSS compatible. We're going to start by labeling it division ID equals content. So this is starting our content area. Now you can name this division ID whatever you want. This is basically telling this div tag its ID is content, and it's going to find content in our style. So we're going to create that content. Actually, when you're doing a div tag in front of your symbol, your titles, it needs to be a number sign. So we're going to do this, and this is basically content. This is looking for that right there. So first I'm going to just tell it its width and its height so it knows. Its width is 760 pixels, and its height is 370 pixels. Just for an example, so I can show you what you can do with this, if we wanted to put a background color to this, we could do background and go down to color, and I'll just use black as an example, and I'll close this. See, we have our tag starting and closing. You have to always make sure to close your tags or you get some serious issues. If I refresh, you can now see our background of our content, since we have this now labeled as black. But since our Photoshop design doesn't have that, we're going to go ahead and close that. Delete this. Okay. Now inside this content, since you can see our whole content area as sliced is this whole area, but our actual content is just this little gray box. So to do this, we're going to create another div tag, which we're going to label div d. We'll name this just table. It really doesn't matter what you label these as long as it matches your CSS. I'm going to close this also. See, we have this closed in here, and inside of the table, or inside of the content is the table. We have basically selected like this. So now I'm going to go ahead and create my table, which will need a background, and the color we're going to be using, we're going to grab our dropper tool and just select right here, and you can see our color is EC, EC, EC. So I'm just going to copy this, and I'm going to go ahead and add this in right here. So we now have our background color going to this table. And when I refresh this, you're not seeing it because I need to set the height and width of this just like I did with this. So in order to get this background, there's a method you could use, which is something fancy I found out, I suppose. It's a neat little trick to find the size of your documents. You can see here's my layer for this. So I'm going to go to layer 6 and I'm going to right click this, and I'm going to convert it to Smart Object, and you can see it changes it now. I'm going to right click it again, and I'm going to go to Edit Contents. It's going to get a little pop-up box. Just click OK, and we now have this layer right in here. And I'm going to go to Image, Canvas Size, pixels, pixels, and you can see the width of this is 750 and our height is 348. So I no longer need this. I'm going to close this, going back to Dreamweaver, and I'm putting the width as 750 and my height as 348 pixels. Save that. When I come back in, see we now have our box, but you can see it automatically pushes to the left and upright. We have this extra space right here on the right and on the bottom, so we're going to need to create padding. So padding basically pushes up against things and pushes it away. So we're going to do padding, and we're going to go to top. We'll try 10 pixels. Well, when I refresh this, alright, if padding doesn't work, you can do margin, which is kind of the same thing, just different properties. There we go. You can see it push it from the top now. We're going to need a little more, so I'm going to go ahead and try and change this to 20 pixels. Refresh. And you can see our height and bottom is now a little even. So I just need to push it from the left now. So I'm going to do margin, left. And I'm going to just go ahead and try, let's just do 5. Probably need 6. Alright, now we have our content centered, but in Photoshop, you remember we added this stroke around the outside, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Just get this color, which is E1, E1, E1. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to do a border. I'm just going to type border, and I'm going to do 2 pixels because that was our stroke size, if you remember. I'm going to add the color, and I'm going to make it a solid line. So right here is our border, and I'm telling it to be 2 pixels thick with this color, and we want our line to be solid around. And then I closed it. And now when I refresh, yeah, you're not able to see this. It's actually pretty light, but if I remove this, let's hope I didn't fail miserably. Let's just do dark, just to see if it's showing up. You can see our border is around it. I don't know why it's not showing our color here. Maybe, let's just go ahead and try this again. 2 pixels. Let's do 3. Okay, that looks a lot better. You can now see our border. Alright, so we have our content table, which you see in our Photoshop. It's almost exactly identical from the coding to Photoshop. The next thing we're going to want to do is add in our images. So I have these images already still on my desktop, which you can see right here, Showbiz, Gallery, and Paper, and I'm just going to go ahead and put them in my image folder. Now doing this, I can come over to the table, and I'm just going to add in these images. Image src, which is the coding for adding an image, and it'll let me browse. And I'm just going to go, oops, I'm going to come to my image folder on my desktop, and then I'm just going to add in the first one, which in Photoshop is Showbiz. So I'm adding Showbiz, and I'm just going to do the height and the width. It's not required, but an alternative text, and I'll just put Showbiz. Which this alternative text is text that will show up if somebody's computer doesn't load an image. Instead of showing an image, it'll show this alternative text. And I'm just going to go ahead and do this 2 more times for my 3 images. So we're going to go ahead and add paper, height, width, and alt, and we'll do paper. It's not liking me today, obviously. Height, width, going a little too quick, width, and our alternative will be Galleria. Now if you see when I close these, I'm putting a slash. This is telling to close tags that are tags in their own. You see image, this is all we have for image, is its own tag. But for like div, it doesn't close itself. It has an alternative closing right here. So it just has div like this. But this is self-closing tag right there. So now that we have our images in our table, I put it in the table tags. I'm going to go back to my coding and I'm going to refresh. Helps if I save it. Refresh. And you can see I now have my 3 images right here. They're all pushed up against each other, which we obviously do not want. So I'm going to go ahead and create these, a way to divide these up. And to do this, I'm going to create them into a list type form. I'm going to do UL, and underneath my last image I'm going to close that. And like I told you in the previous tutorial, these images I'm actually going to have so they can click and it will link them back to, or it will link them to a demonstration of the coded version of these previous websites I made. So I'm going to want to make these links in my site. So I'm going to do li, and then I'm going to do ahref, and I'm just going to put a number symbol. Now what this does, this is basically, it's not telling it to link, it's basically just having it bookmark. It's bookmarking the link so I can change it for later. I'm actually going to show you what this does. And I'm closing these. See, I have my li, ahref, or my closing a, and my closing li. You want to close in the same order you open. So this is last, or first, so this is going to be last. Just closing inside of each other. I'm going to save this. And when I refresh, you can see it kind of creates as a list, which we'll fix, but my image is now a link, is what I want to show you. I can click this and nothing happens, but it is a link. That is from this symbol right here. And I'm just going to go ahead and do this exact same thing with my other 2 images. And I'm just going to close these. Save that. Now that I have this done, you can see I have all these just listing. That's what, see, the number symbol just pushes them back to the very top of the page when they click, so it's no harm done. And you can just use it as demonstrations if you're just coding one page and you want to show somebody. To create these as not a list, li and ul are both able to be read by CSS, just like everything else. So I'm going to take this ul, I'm going to come here, I'm going to do ul. Now, the reason I'm not putting a number symbol in front of ul, like I did with table and content, because ul is not, it's a tag of its own. Just like body, you see body right here, it has no div or anything. It's just a tag on its own, so you're just going to do ul. Now with ul, I'm going to want list style, none. And the reason is because this ul creates it as a list like we have here. So when I refresh, you can see it removes my list settings. And I'm going to do li also. And I'm going to do display inline. I'm going to close this. And bam, there we go. We now have, okay, it doesn't look like we've done much, I'm going to be honest. But this basically is setting up a way so we can divide our images to look spaced out like this. So first what you need to do is come down. UL creates an auto margin, which is basically pads it away from the side, so we're going to do 0. And it creates padding, so we'll do that 0 also. Now I just took away its margin and padding property, so when I refresh this, you see it just pushes them right back to where we had them. But that's alright. We're going to take li and we're going to add padding to this. We're going to do padding, we're going to do left, and we're going to do 20 pixels. This is going to push it from the left side by 20 pixels. So this is basically an li right here, showbiz, because in our coding we have my showbiz image in li. So this represents an li, this represents li, this represents li, and so does this. So we're going to have these push each other away by 20 pixels to the left. So when I refresh this now, you can see it pushed 20 pixels left, 20 pixels left, 20 pixels to the left. Now we're going to continue to do this, but I'm going to do it to the right so it evens itself out. So now I'm going to have 20 pixels to the right as well. And now it's pushing to the right 20 pixels and to the left. So we actually have 20 right and 20 left right here pushing. And you can see it's still not even, so I'm going to go ahead and change both these to 25. And usually with padding you have to play around with it a bit. That's a little too much, you can see, so I'm going to change these to 22. It's pushing it to the next line. Refresh this. Alright, now we have, it's a little bit more even, maybe 23. Just try and get it as close as possible. Alright, so we now have our different paddings. Now you have to remember, since this is LI, 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 all of these LIs are inside the UL tag. So basically, this right here is UL. LI, 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 and this is UL. Okay? Because all of the UL is right here. So you have to remember that all these are connected, and you have to remember how they connect. So with UL, remembering this is UL, you can see in my coding, this is pushed down right here. So I'm going to want this to push down, and the easiest way to do that would be to add some padding to the top of our UL. So I'm just going to come down, I'm just going to change the padding to top, and I'm just going to have this to be about 40 pixels. When I refresh this, padding, forgot what other padding, I think it creates a left and right padding. I'm just going to go ahead and make these 0. I'm just going to refresh this, and you see we now have our padding on the top just like in Photoshop, but we need a little bit more, I think, so I'm just going to go ahead and do 45 on our top padding. So right here is 45 pixels, and remember, since the UL tag is inside the table tag, it's going to be padding it in between table and UL, so it's padding just this from the top of that. It's not padding from the top of this, because remember, this area right here, all this right here is our content area. You have to remember this. So now that I have all these right here, I'm going to want to create our titles, which we have Showbiz, GFX Cube Tuts, and Chosen Galleria. So I'm going to go ahead and just copy this, Showbiz. And inside this LI tag, I'm going to try something. I'm going to add div ID. I'm going to do class, or actually I'm doing div class instead of div ID, and I'm going to have it equal title. Now this, I'm going to close it right here, and this title is going to be Showbiz. You can see this LI is all in between. This all right here is just this image right here. I'm going to refresh this. Save this. We now have my Showbiz text up here. Now you can see it's just sitting there. We don't like that because it doesn't look like our Photoshop design, so we're going to make it look like our Photoshop design. To do that, we're going to see what we have. So in Photoshop, we have this as an Arial 18 font, or 18 size font, and we have our color for this set to 2C, 2C, 2C. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this. Now division ID class. Now when you're doing class in CSS, you're not going to put the number sign, you're going to put a period. Okay? Now this right here, dot class, or I'm sorry, dot title, this right here is representing division class equals title. So it's going to find, this is looking for title in our CSS. So our title is now going to need some effects. So we're going to do color, which this is going to be our font color, which we are going to have it as 2C, 2C, 2C. Next we're going to do font size. We're going to do font, and we're going to have it as Arial. And we're going to close this. And any font effects, like if you want to have this bold, you're going to do bold and then 18 pix. That's going to create font size bold 18 pix. So if I go back here, you can see it's now 18 pix. We have our 2C color, and it's bold. In Photoshop we didn't do bold, so I'm gonna go ahead and delete that. I was just showing you as an example. See, we just have our regular Showbiz text, pretty much exactly how we have it look-wise in Photoshop. So now we're going to need to get it off this side. So of course we're going to use padding. So our title, we need to have it away from the left. So I'm going to do padding left. And we know our image is pushing from the left by 23 pixels. So I'm going to do 23 pixels from the left also. And you're going to watch it push right up evenly with our image now. And it has a little padding on the bottom right here, you can see. So I'm going to go ahead and do padding bottom. I'm just going to do 10 pixels because it's not very much. Just going to push that down, and now we have our image with showbiz text, and we hardly used anything at all. I'm actually going to remove some of this top padding now because I just added 10 extra. So I'm going to take away from this 45 and make it 35. Hope that's making sense. We're pushing from the top here and pushing down on the top also. So when I refresh this, it's going to remove that top from right here. And we're going to just do the same thing. I'm just going to go back here, and I'm going to take this, and I'm just going to, when you press enter in Dreamweaver, it doesn't matter. That's not going to put it on a new line. Actually, div tags automatically separate themselves and create new lines from the rest of the content. So I'm just spacing this out so it's easier for you to see. But I'm going to need to change all these. So this one is GFX Cube Tuts, and this last one is Chosen Galleria. I'm just going to save this. I'm going to refresh. I'm going to have to say that does not look right. So what I'm going to need to do is come back to my CSS sheet, and I'm going to have to add float right, which is going to cause everything in here to float to the right. You can see now we have this is how it should be, but our title, since we have everything floating right now, it kind of messes everything up. So we're going to go back into this, and we're just going to delete the padding left, and you can see we now have our titles. But this top padding still isn't right exactly. You can see it's just way too much, so we're going to come back over here. I'm just going to try and make this 15. Alright, that is looking a lot more like the Photoshop version. Alright, lastly, we just need to do for our content is our little content boxes. So I'm just going to go ahead and make these now. I'm going to do the same thing as I did with these right here, except instead of having it on top, I'm going to have it on the bottom. So I'm going to do div class, and I'm going to do, we'll do content, and we're going to close this. You can see we already have a content, but it's an ID content. So since this is a class content, it will read it differently. We're going to have, inside of this, we're going to have designed by days and coded by Sky. And copy this, and I'm just going to put it in here. And to create a new line with HTML, you need to do BR, and you're going to self-close it. Now this is creating a new line right here, so let me just fix my coding up. Right here is going to be my content. Okay, it's going to be content designed by days BR for new line and coded by Sky. So when I come over here, refresh this, try to save it, it's just pushing it over here. But I'm going to go ahead and just copy this, and I'm just going to put it in 3 times inside my LI tags. Alright, you can see I now have my content, same as the header. But now I'm going to need to add effects to my content. So I'm going back to my style CSS, coming down, and I'm going to put content, a period, because I am using class. And I'm going to want my font. Let's see what we used in our Photoshop. We have Arial 12, and we're using just straight black. So we're going to do 12 pix Arial, and we're doing our color as black. So when I refresh this, we have our Arial 12 black. We're going to need the width and the height of this container right here. So we're going to do what we did before. I'm going to find our layer right here. Okay, I'm going to right click it, convert to smart object, right click it again, edit contents, click OK. I'm going to have my content box right here. I'm going to go to image, canvas size, change this to pixels, and I now have my width and my height. So it's 207 by 80. So I'm going to have my content width 270 pix by height 80 pix. Refresh this. I see it's liking that one a lot. Let's go ahead and change the width. We're going to have it the same width as the image because that's what it technically should be. Seems to be reading that a little wrong. So we're going to have this 200 pix, and that will have it so the width of this box is just going straight to the edge of this. It's invisible, you can't see it right now, but it'll be there once we put our background color, which we're going to do right now. Background. Let me go ahead and close this out. I'm going to need the color of this, so I'm getting my dropper tool and I'm just getting the color, which we can see is E1. And I'm just adding this for my background color. And when I save this and I refresh here, we can see we now have my box. Now it needs to be having a little distance from the top, like you can see right here. I'm going to say that's about 5 pixels, so we're going to create a margin for this. We're going to do margin top, because we're pushing from the top, 5 pix. When I refresh, you can add a little more. I'm going to just go ahead and do 10. There you go. We'll just lower this 8. But now we're going to need our text away from the top and from the sides, and we're just going to go ahead and do probably 8 pix. And to do this, we're going to do padding. We're just going to have padding all over. This is going to do it at all sides. We're just going to do 8 pix. Ooh. Okay, what it's doing, it's trying to pad against this right here, which is, see, you can see it increase the length of the box. So we're going to need, I'm going to go ahead and change this to do padding top 8 pix and padding to the left 8 pix. Now this won't change much. It won't change anything most likely. Okay, I made this box a little smaller, but this is going to help me change my height. Since we're adding 8 padding to the top, we're going to need to lower this by 8. So we're going to have 192. And when I refresh this, you can see it fixed the padding because it didn't have enough room here. And I'm also going to need to take it from, it doesn't look like it's bothering it, but we're going to go ahead and take 8 away from this also. Get 72. Refresh. You see it was fixing, it fixed the height right there also. So we have our width and our height fixed now. And we have it how we want it in Photoshop. See, it's exactly the same as Photoshop. That looks a little bold. I'm not even liking that, to be honest. I don't know why it's looking bold, but I'm not liking that, so it's alright. Now we just need to get our border color, so we're going to come and zoom in down here. We're just going to grab our border color, which we can see is 959595. I'm going to copy that. Now I'm going to come back and we're going to do border. So just like before, border. We're going to do 2 pix. Oops. Add our color in, and we're going to do solid line. Make sure everything's closed. We're going to refresh. And since this is 2 pix all over, it's basically going to be 2 pix here, 2 pix here, 2 here, 2 here. So that's basically 4 for the top and the bottom, and 4 for the side. So we're going to need to minus that again. So 72 minus 4 is 68, and 92 minus 4 is 188. And when we refresh, we have all of our sides perfect, and we have our borders like before, but this is actually 1 pixel, so I'm going to go ahead and add 2 to this. Add 2 to that. I hope this is making sense to you, what I'm doing with this height. And I'm just going to change my border to 1. That was a mistake right there. This needs to be 70, and that's 1. Alright, there we go. We have our completed content area now, looking exactly like we have it in Photoshop. Actually, I don't know how these got switched around. I'm guessing it would be something done with our float right. It just decided to whack all of our stuff out, so we're just gonna go with that. It's displaying how I want, so I'm not gonna complain. Maybe let me just go ahead and try floating this to the left just to see what happens. There we go. That fixes that right there. Last thing we need to do is our footer. So I'm just going to copy my footer text that I have here, and I'm going to go to design. I'm going to click on my footer right there, and then go back to code, and you see I have my footer image spacer just like before. I'm just going to go ahead and delete this, and I'm going to add division ID, and we're going to call this footer. And close this, and inside my footer tag I'm just gonna go ahead and put my nav links, and I'm gonna put, when you're creating a nav you can't just have it like this, it's not gonna accept the spacer, so I'm gonna go ahead and delete all of this like this, how it has this. I'm just gonna put it at a new line. And we're going to basically have to do exactly what we did like the pictures to make a list. We're going to have to do UL, and I know this is probably so fun for all of you. I know it's fun for me. We're going to have to do the A for F, and I'm just going to put the place marker link. Just to shorten my time, I'm going to go ahead and just paste all this. Just pressing Control C and then Control V to paste. Alright, so I need to close my UL now. Make sure you always close everything. See, my UL is now closed in there. So when you look at this, you can see we now have our nav right here. It technically shouldn't be like this, because what it's doing right now, since we have UL and LI, it's actually reading off this previous UL and LI that we made back at our title area. So to fix this, we're going to classify these specifically. See, this is table UL, which we know table and UL, we know these are going together. So what we're going to tell it to do is to find table, and then it's going to find UL. So table and UL, and then we're going to do the same thing for LI. We're going to do table, LI, which is now basically, when I refresh this, you see this is at its default categories, and this didn't change, because this is now table UL right here. It's classifying that all as in table UL. So this is now just default LI and UL. So what we're going to do is now create stuff for our footer. So we have footer UL and footer LI. So we're going to create first footer UL, and we're going to do list style. We're going to do none, just like before. And we know this is just going to remove our bullets. If I were to save this, it would remove my bullets. See, this is why you have to close your tags right there. There we go. Okay, now we need to get rid of our margin and padding from this. So margin 0, padding 0, which we see fixes that right there. And now we're going to need to do footer LI, and we're going to need to do display inline, and we're going to need, alright, we're going to close this like this. Alright, there we go, we have this. Now, next thing I'm going to want to do is change the font. So I'm going to add my footer tag, and this will just change all the font inside of this. And we're going to do font, we're going to do Arial, we're going to go ahead and do 12 pixels. Oops. Okay, I now have my font, which looks good. Let's just see our Photoshop version. Okay. Next I'm going to want to center this. So I'm going to do text align, and I'm just going to do center. When I look at this, now I have my text centered right here. And I'm going to need to create some padding like we have in Photoshop. So I'm going to do from the LI, I'm just going to do padding left. I'm going to do 20 pixels. Then I'm going to do padding right, and I'm just going to do 20 pixels here also. When I refresh this, we're going to see my padding. Then we'll go back to my source code, and I'm just going to add in my dividers now. Alright. Next thing we want to do is change the text color, because in Photoshop we have it black and we don't have this ugly purple. This is kind of like an auto browser for text links. So I'm going to go to style, and I'm going to do footer LI, and I'm going to do A, which is basically footer, and then it's finding the LI and it's finding the A. So this is going to allow us to change our text or our links. So we're going to do color for our links, and we're going to change it to black. I'm going to go to new line. When you see, we now have our text as black like we want it. So now I need to get rid of this underline though, because that shouldn't be there. So I'm going to do text decoration, and we're going to go to none. Now basically what text decoration is, it allows you to do different things, like you can see it allows you to do line through. It allows you to do pretty much any decorations you want. But we're just going to have none because it's what we're aiming for. Now if you want some effects when you mouse over your nav bar, we're going to do footer, LI, A, and you're going to do hover, like this. This is telling it every time you hover over a link to add some effects or whatever we're telling it to do. So we're going to do text decoration, and we're just going to do underline. So now when we underline or mouse over, we're going to get an underline effect. Now we can do different things. You can also change the color for when you hover over and everything else, but we're not trying to do that right now. So next thing I need to do is add my copyright. Go ahead and just copy this, and I'm just going to come inside my footer tags, and I'm just going to do BR for new line. I'm just going to paste this in. You can see I now have my copyright and my text footer links, just like in Photoshop. And that pretty much concludes our footer content and our top part right here. Now the next thing I'm going to show you how to do, because we haven't done this yet, is our top banner. So how we're going to do that is open this in Photoshop, and we're just going to go ahead and get our slice select tool, and I'm just going to delete these slices, these ones right here. That way I can have room right here. I'm just going to grab my slice tool, I'm going to zoom in, and just right here in the middle I'm just going to grab 1 pixel. This is all I want, is just this 1 pixel right here. And I'm just going to go ahead and, if you zoom in a little bit more, you can get closer into this. I'm just trying to get it so I can select it, double click it here. I'm just going to go ahead and name this background. So when it saves, it's just going to be called BG for background. I'm just going to go to File, Save for Web and Device. You can see my 1 pixel here, and I'm just going to change this to a PNG 24 because I know it's going to be the lightest. Then I'm just going to go ahead and save. Desktop. I'm not going to save it right on my desktop because it will go into this image folder, which I don't want it to do. So I'm going to go to New Folder. I'm just going to open this up, and I'm just going to go ahead and save in this folder. When I put all this away, I'm going to see this new folder. Open this up, and I have my background right here. I'm just going to go ahead and stick this inside of here. This is my images for my website, and I'm going to come over to style.css. I'm going to go to the top. Now remember body, well what this is, it's basically from here, it's all this right here, our 2 body tags. Closing tag and opening tag. So everything in between here is represented with this right here. So what we're going to do, we're going to add the background to our body. So we're going to do background. I'm going to go to URL. We're going to choose our background.png and close this. Save it. Now when I open this and I refresh, you're going to see it's just going to repeat. It's just a 1 pixel line repeating all over our screen. And to make it not repeat down, we're just going to go, I'm going to put a space after this, and we're going to put repeat and X. So it just repeats across the X axis. going to save this. When I come back and refresh, we have just our banner, and it's just going to repeat all the way across. So it doesn't matter how big their screen is, it's going to be repeating. Now you see this image, sometimes images do this, it keeps the white background, and it's not a hard fix. We're just going to have to go back into Photoshop, and we're going to go to our history, and we're just going to go ahead and get our slices back. So I have this slice back, and I'm just going to go to File, Save for Web and Device, and I'm just going to go ahead and change this slice from a JPEG to, oh, let me go ahead and, alright, I just had to make sure it hit our banner. I'm just going to go to File, Save for Web and Device, and I'm just going to go ahead and change this to a PNG 24, which will remove our background after I remove it. Make sure you hide it, the layers here. Alright, we have no background color now. Alright, we're good. Save for Web and Device, and you're just going to change this to PNG 24, and you see this image now has no background where we had previously cut it out. So I'm just going to save this. It's still in the new folder that I had created, so I'm just going to save and overwrite everything. I'm going to open the new folder again, go into Images, and I'm just going to drag this new image into my image folder and overwrite that. And now when I refresh, we have our completed website. You see, we didn't have to make this all an image. This is all CSS, which is a very useful tool. Our links, our navbar's links and everything. If you enjoyed this tutorial, be sure to check out more tutorials at gfxcube.net. I want to thank you for watching this tutorial, and I hope you come back for more. Thank you, and see you in the next tutorial.